I guess
in
the real world, some people would say 4 ounces isn't really a big serving.
Well, but that's not exactly true. Okay, I mean a 2-ounce serving of Dreamfields of most cuts is about a cupful of spaghetti or pasta or whatever shape you have. Rotini, it's actually a little more than that.
Right.
And that's a pretty good serving. And then if you put whatever you put on top of that and other things, the salad and things, that's a pretty good meal. But if you eat twice the amount, now you're getting twice the amount of carbohydrates, even digestible carbohydrates. And so, you are going to, your system has to deal with that. That's a fact. So we try to stress to people, don't eat more than what you really should, and it is one of the things that we hear a lot in emails is that, I love the product and, but I eat too much of it, it tastes good and I eat too much of it. And, we're not interested in people buying it because they eat too much of it. We're trying to have a product that delivers some good nutritional value to people and tastes good, and not go over the top with it.
Well,
so Dr. Einfeld's test with twice the amount and the length of time, and again, not really knowing much about him from what his metabolism is, it's an interesting piece of information, but I can't do much with it on its own. It's a single piece of data.
Well, he would certainly fit within that healthy category. I can assure you of that. I've met the man in person, and he is about as healthy as anybody I've ever met in my life. So
good.
So he certainly doesn't have any of the metabolic disorders we were talking about earlier that might skew the results. He certainly is a very healthy man. So unlike some of the rest of the people listening to this right now who may have diabetes, who may have have to be on a low-carb diet for whatever their reasons, maybe for some of us, and obviously Jimmy Moore can't obviously have a lot of this if I'm going to eat it, because it does present a spike in my blood sugar, and it makes me wonder what's happening to my insulin levels at the same time. So at some point I might even do that test to try to see, well, what is happening with the insulin, because I think that's even more important than blood sugar necessarily.
Yeah, and I would also suggest that you do the test over several times just to see, what the difference is one day to the next kind of thing.
This is true. This is true.
I mean, like I said, there are a number of things that can cause that. If you're very healthy and you're working out a lot, that revs up your metabolism a little bit, and it'll do some things. Also, alcohol and caffeine will make some effects on it. And that's the real world. I mean, you're right. I mean, that's the way regular people live. They have coffee, they have a glass of wine, they eat a double serving, and
put sauce on it,
and that is what it is. And so when we make our claims, we have to have basically a protocol that is a set protocol, and that's why we do that. And if we tried to measure everything for all the different variations that could go on, we couldn't come up with a number. I mean, the glycemic index, one of the critical things about glycemic index is it is variable, and even the new dietary guidelines that have come out have not been very kind to the glycemic index as a measure. We've talked to, or I have talked to people at the state dietetic conventions, because we typically exhibit at some of them, not all of them, but some of them, about what their thought is about that. And I believe, I don't have that in front of me right now, but the dietary guideline sort of executive summary said that glycemic index is really not very useful for most people. It might be useful for people with type 2, but there's not enough evidence yet to really say that for sure. Is in my words, that's what they sort of say. And clearly there have been people that have spent, like Jenny Brand Miller, and people who have spent a tremendous amount of time putting charts and tables together for glycemic index, and and there are people that are very adamant that the glycemic index is a good lifestyle and things of that sort. But back in 2004 when we launched Dreamfields, and that isn't that long ago, but it is in terms of where we've been from the nutrition point of view. That was kind of the best thing we could find to sort of say, okay, this is what we think is a pretty good handle on this product, glycemic index. The other thing about test that we do, if you look at that protocol, is we use what we call a 25-gram available carbohydrate load, which is about 38 grams of product. It's not quite a full serving of product. Right. And again, glycemic index testing is either 25 grams or 50 grams is kind of the standard. Right. Okay, the test that Dr. Gannon and Dr. Is it Nuttall, or am I saying that wrong?
I have no idea. It's Frank. He's at the University of Minnesota. So.
Right. Anyway, I think they did a 50-gram load, which is more like a 70. It's a little higher. It's a little more than a full serving. And we know that because we've done some testing ourselves with how much of a load should we give people so that we're sure that when we're measuring, we're in a linear state. Okay, linear meaning that it's predictable where it's going to go. Right. And we've done as low as like 6.25 grams, which gives you almost no result, and we've done as high as 50 grams. And what we get is kind of an S curve, and the S curve in the middle is kind of the 25 to 30 grams, and then at the 50 is kind of at the top where things begin to sort of flatten out again, and that means that we think that means that there's some other things going on in the body when you get that load of carbohydrates coming at you that's beginning to help or do something to metabolize that. And actually, we have a food scientist who's working on that right now, the same person who's working on the peer-reviewed article, and an MD who's helping us with that down in Gainesville. So we're trying to sort through that and understand exactly what that means. Now, glycemic index, the people who do glycemic index measure lots of products, so they have to have something that's good for all products. We're only measuring one product, just Dreamfields, and we've done it for 7 years. And the data that you talked about, like I said, we have those graphs. What we need to do, I think, is not just put the graphs out there. We need to put some context around them so people know exactly kind of what they're looking at.
Or maybe replicate the study with your own people and publish that data so that we can see a comparison. Because if Dr. Gannon and Dr. Nuttall's study, and Dr. Einfeld for that matter, and mine, if we're all wrong as far as what we see happening with the Dreamfields versus the traditional pasta, with our blood sugar, leave the GI out of it for now, because most people that's not really relevant if it's impacting their blood sugar. If we're all seeing that, then wouldn't it behoove Dreamfields to want to try to replicate that same study to see what they get?
I agree. I absolutely agree. And to that end, we have started that. Okay, excellent. So we have started to look at what I'll call the best-selling traditional pastas that are out there. And, I don't want to name them, but you can name them.
We know what they are.
You can walk to the store and see them. And we're going to use exactly our protocol and run our protocol on that, and we'll have that data available. Now, I think that data, I'd like to come back and talk to you about it, please, just like we're doing today.
Absolutely.
I believe it'll be the fall by the time we're really ready to do that. There's a lot of things going on in the summer that'll make it difficult to get it all done. And the test takes time. Like I said, when we do the test, we replicate the test several times, and then we analyze the data. And if we're going to we'll probably do a couple of the pastas so that we know, because like I said, there's a difference between where the wheat is grown and what blend they're using, because most pastas today have durum semolina as sort of their base, and then you'll see semolina flour also in there. So it's a blend of semolina, which is a coarse ground wheat flour, and then semolina flour, which is a finer grind of that. And the percentage of those blends will make a difference, as does the actual structure of the pasta itself. The other thing on our website, and it's in that same area, but there's a technical paper, and I don't have the title of it in front of me, but there's a technical paper which has a couple of scanning electron microscopic pictures that were taken back in the development days of Dreamfields, which basically we took regular pasta and cooked it, and we took Dreamfields and cooked it, and then put it under a scanning electron microscope. Because the key difference that we believe is happening with Dreamfields is the internal structure of the pasta is different than regular pasta. Now let me explain that, because we're adding protein, which is basically wheat gluten, and we're also adding fiber, which is inulin, pectin, and xanthan gum, back into the semolina. And when we mix that, and it is a fairly rigorous mixing kind of a process, when you mix that and then you dry it, and the drying process is also fairly rigorous for any pasta, but Dreamfields in particular, the structure that you get is a little more complex. There's
Right.
more strands in it, and the starch molecules are inside that structure. And what we believe is happening is that the starch molecules are not, that when you cook it, they don't gelatinize, meaning
Right.
they don't absorb water and swell up. And
Mike,
so they're,
You,
go ahead.
you explained all this in the August 2009 interview, and I certainly will point people to go listen to that
Okay.
interview as well, because I'm having deja vu all over again hearing you say that. Not that it's not important to hear, but if people are interested in learning more about that and the complex matrix that goes into the Dreamfields, certainly go listen to it. I'll have a link to it so that people can listen and enjoy at least hearing that explanation
Okay.
of what Dreamfields is. But I really appreciate you coming on today. I'm definitely interested in hearing about your study that will release hopefully this fall. Hopefully we can get it a peer-reviewed journal published study. That would be really good, and I highly encourage you to use people who are already low carbers, who are diabetic, and who are obviously normal and healthy. Make those 3 subset groups testing your product, because I think that's all extremely interesting and extremely vital to the future of Dreamfields pasta.
I appreciate your input, Jimmy, and frankly, I think we'll come back to you as we continue to develop this. I mean, not just on the air like this, but as a resource for what you know and the people that you know to basically develop those tests and the protocols and those kind of things. I mean, like I said, we're not at all interested in trying to hide things. I mean, we
Right.
think we have a really good product. We think it's really great for people. We certainly get a lot of emails back to say that it is. But we also know that people on the diabetic side say your mileage may vary, so to
Right.
speak.
That's
That it is different from time to time, and we'd have a heck of a lot better product if we could pin that down and say we know exactly what's causing that, and then fix that. I mean,
Yeah.
we'd love to do that. So,
Well, hopefully you get into touch with Dr. Gannon and Dr. Nuttall and have a sit down with them, and at least maybe work with them on replicating and using your protocols for doing a quality research and getting it out there, and hopefully kind of letting the chips fall where they may.
that's right, and that's actually where we came out with Dr. Nuttall. I mean, is basically we could agree to disagree on the exact numbers that we got right now, but the best thing to do would be for both of us to run the same test on the same product
That's
and see
right.
where we shake out.
That's right.
And I believe that that's a good idea. So,
Awesome.
So give me a little bit more time. I mean, like I said, this is a tough interview. I mean, we have some very tough questions coming at us on a product that's been on the market for almost 7 years, we. Like I said, believe it's a good product, but we want to stay in front of people and make sure they understand what we know and what we don't know about the product. So there you go.
His name is Mike Crowley. He's from Dreamfields Foods. Visit their website, dreamfieldsfoods.com, where you can learn and go under that professionals tab to see all the protocols for how they conduct research on their products. And we appreciate you being here today on the Livin' La Vida Low Carb Show.